Malabar Farm is the site of a triple murder that took place in 1896, when a deranged young woman, smitten with a younger man, went on a killing rampage, the stuff of legends. Today we discuss the haunts and murders of Ceely Rose. Welcome to Curious True Crime. Before we start, I'd like to ask that you hit the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and comment down below. Thank you. Cecilia Rose was born March 13th, 1873, to David and Rebecca Rose. David and Rebecca had a son named Walter, who was older than Ceely, and they ran a grist mill, which was apparently very successful. Growing up, Ceely would have a very difficult life. Apparently, she was not very attractive, and the kids at school would torment her for it. She also had a learning disability, which made it so she was a few grades back from what she was supposed to be at, so kids made fun of her for that as well. Now, boys wanted nothing to do with Ceely. They didn't find her attractive, they found her weird and just odd. But Ceely really loved boys. She would often sit with boys and try and have conversations with them, but all of them would either just scoff or send her away and ignore her. But one boy was different than the other ones, and that is the main man of our story. Guy Barry lived in the neighborhood of Ceely, and he was 5 years younger than her. But he was very polite to her and very nice to her, and Ceely just became smitten with him. Ceely had just turned 23, and she would go to Guy's house every single day to have conversations with him. And she eventually told her parents that they were going to get married. Guy had spent all this time being really sweet to her and nice to her, but he never had any romantic feelings towards her, and he never tried to be romantic towards her at all. So Ceely was just kind of making this up in her head that he was also smitten with her, and that just simply was not true. So when Ceely brought up the fact that they were going to get married, Guy was like, whoa, hold on. I don't think our parents would allow that. At that moment, Ceely just decided, oh, well, we have to be together at any cost. So she hatched up a plan in her brain and was like, I know what we're gonna do. Well, what I'm gonna do, she thought. I'm going to unalive my parents and then unalive Guy's. And that was her thought process, which is not normal, that's for sure, and evil and disturbing. But that was Ceely's mind. She was like, this makes perfect sense to me. Now, arsenic at the time was used as rat poison because it was tasteless and really just was the perfect bait for them. And it worked well. So Ceely was like, oh, arsenic, I see. So she decided, I'm going to sprinkle this into some family meals and we'll see what happens. One time in 1896 during breakfast, Ceely decided to put arsenic in the cottage cheese. And after everyone ate breakfast, her father and her brother went to the mill. Her mother went to go shopping. So Ceely cleared breakfast and washed the dishes and whatnot, going about her day as normal, because we all know this is totally normal. Not. Soon, every single family member, except for Ceely, obviously, became severely ill and came home. On June 30th, Ceely's father would pass away. Her brother would hold on until July 4th. However, Ceely's mother started to recover because she had not eaten a lot of the cottage cheese. And Ceely was like, uh-oh, my plan is not going as planned. So Rebecca actually found out that Ceely poisoned them, and she tried to protect her daughter still. That blows my mind. I understand a love for your child. I completely understand that 100%. But when your child tries to unalive you, I feel like the dynamics kind of change and feelings kind of change. But clearly not for Rebecca. She was still very strongly in Ceely's corner and was like, no, I'm going to protect my daughter. But unfortunately, this would be a fatal mistake. Rebecca started to talk about moving away so that Ceely would be protected from the law. And Ceely did not like this because obviously, if she moved away, she would move away from Guy and they couldn't get married. And that was the last thing on Ceely's mind, was moving away, especially from Guy. So Ceely was like, no, no. So Ceely actually started putting arsenic into this buttermilk, and July 19th, Rebecca would pass away. So Ceely's plan had worked. She had gotten rid of her own family. So now no one could stand in the way for her to marry Guy. But she still had to deal with Guy's parents. So Ceely hatched a plan, and she baked a pie for Guy's parents and gave it to Guy and said, don't eat any of this. And Guy was like, okay, and was weirded out by it. So, I mean, I would be too. Hello? You're just gonna come to my house and be like, hey, I baked a pie for your parents. Don't touch it. That's a bit suspicious. My suspicion is ringing once again. Luckily, Guy was not interested in giving his parents the pie, and he actually fed it to his chickens, and within an hour, all of the chickens were passed. All of them gone. And that's gonna look real suspicious for Ceely. So, weirdly enough, Ceely didn't want good arsenic to go to waste. So she invited a minister over and was going to feed him poisoned chicken. So I don't understand why she's just going on a spree or anything, but she decided that she would. And so that's what she was going to do. She was going to feed him poisoned chicken. But lucky for the minister, he knocked on the door and Ceely never answered. So he got off the hook, and she didn't unalive anyone else, at least not that day. Obviously, by this time, it was obvious that Ceely had unalived her family and the chickens, and a neighbor came over with the sheriff in the next room, and they caught Ceely's confession of it. So, uh-oh, Ceely. So Ceely was arrested and tried for 3 murders, but she actually was found not guilty for a reason of insanity and had to go to an asylum in Toledo. In 1915, Ceely would be transferred to the Lima State Hospital, and in 1934, she actually ended up dying there the day after her 61st birthday. She's buried in the hospital graveyard, but many say she actually haunts the Malabar Farm State Park. People say on nights when there's a full moon in the sky, you can see Ceely's spirit looking out the window of her old home. People have also seen Ceely walking the grounds of her old house. Possibly she's still there looking for Guy Barry. Which, how sad for her, but also not very sad because she did unalive her entire family. So you can't be too sad. Part of Ceely's family's mill was repurchased and torn down, but they kept some of the beams to reconstruct a barn, and people say that they see hauntings there as well. So the barn that was made at Malabar Farm State Park was actually used for plays and theater stuff, and they actually made a play about Ceely Rose and what had happened. And during the scene where Ceely is unaliving her mother, the lights would flicker on and off on their own. And then once the scene would end, they would go completely back to normal, which is really interesting when you think about it. Why that scene particularly? I find that really interesting. One night, a team of ghost hunters split up. Some went to Ceely's house, and another set went to the big house across Malabar, and they were communicating through radios. and all of a sudden they heard a woman scream through the radio. Both teams then rushed to the other because they were making sure that they weren't hurt, and that's when they realized that it was Ceely's ghost, because nobody on either team had screamed through the radio. They automatically thought, oh my gosh, it's Ceely. Whether the ghost tales are true or not makes no difference. It was a story about a deranged woman who unalived people for her lover, and she just ended up being alone and unloved at the end of her life anyway, which is really sad, but kind of deserved. And that's the story of Ceely Rose. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, stay curious.